$250,000 commission. So, this morning, the company's 40 employees are scattering across the forest in an effort to divide and conquer. Guys like modern-day lumberjack Trevor Killian, whose role in filling the order finds the Alaskan bush in search of fresh trees to harvest.
Elon, go. We've been out here working in this unit for a while. We got most of the trees on the ground. We got one more cluster to get, and my partner out here is Elon.
Society's greatest asset. For the past 8,000 years or so, salt has been one of society's greatest assets. Not just because our bodies require it to live, but because its unique qualities are essential to creating a lot of pretty handy products, like glass, meat, rubber, textiles, and about half of all the chemicals we use. That's why we have rail cars stretching from the tip of Florida across Canada to northernmost Alaska. And while a good bit of that will wind up on tables across that, many of which could be deadly. And for America's more northern states, winter has already arrived.
Many parts of the country are in the grip of a brutal cold front.
What we know now is it's a monster. What we don't know is how much snow it will leave in its wake.
Almost overnight, thousands of miles of roadways are in desperate need of salt, which means the demand for this precious mineral is spiking in a big way. Fortunately for us, the 60-plus salt producers of our nation are working overtime to fill that demand, including a facility in southern New Mexico known as United Salt Carlsbad. Here, a team of 75 workers can shovel, process, and ship their output to a near uncanny 2,000 tons. And all that starts with workers like this man.
We're going to make our way out to the salt lakes. We're going to with a powerful machine here.
There are a number of ways to harvest salt, from mining to laying brine out to dry. But here at Carlsbad, guys like Raul harvest it from a 2,000-acre flat. And a pretty old one, that. Naturally occurring salt pans like this one were once prehistoric lakes. But over the course of about 2 million years, the arid climate evaporated it down to a sheet of almost pure sodium chloride, which can be scraped directly from the Earth's surface. But first, it has to be broken up.
What I am doing right now is using my ripper. Dump a ripper in, we'll just move forward here, make sure we got enough salt. Looks pretty good. Looks like we're getting a fair amount of salt. Just going to keep on doing this.
In all, Raul will make 32 passes with the ripper to loosen up a 100-foot strip of raw salt. Then, it's time for phase 2.
My last pass here, so we're fixing to...
Come on, fire go dry.
We'll start
or they'll pass out from it.
As we go along here, that'll create our windrows.
A windrow is basically just a 100-foot-long pile of salt, which Raul will draw from to fill trucks bound for the production plant.
We're doing good so far. We're going into finish this third pass.
See it, William.
Then we'll move on to the next pass.
No, you can't see it on your video.
But on salt beds like these, some areas, often called holes, can be like quicksand.
Oh.
Looks like my front tire's stuck. We'll have to call somebody.
Yeah, but I think we don't put wood in his tires in the middle of a salt lake. Sam took a bus out in a salt lake.
From lake beds or about 18 million tons of salt will be used on icy roads across the country each winter. And with the early cold front sweeping the north, guys like Riley Smith are feeling the pressure as much as anyone at the Carlsbad facility.
The dependence on road salt to be able to help create safer driving conditions for everyone is pretty essential. So I gotta make sure that, not only is everything running smoothly, that everyone's safe while doing it, and we're getting the product that we need to give to all our customers.
As foreman of United Salt's Lake Plant, it's Riley's job to ensure that the American public receives the salt that's been harvested and none of the impurities that come with it. Which means today, you'll need to wash 2,000 tons of salt to meet the spike in demand. And all that starts.
Now we're going to activate the clutch, put it in first gear. We're going to let the pressure build up. So we're bringing water in from the lake using the pump, and we're sucking it up, letting the pressure come into this valve. What we're looking for is the pressure to hit around 20 psi so it'll take over and go to the wash plant.
Natural brine from the lake is salty enough to rinse United's product without dissolving. And with plenty of that now feeding into the washing facility, Riley's ready to fire up the rest of the system.
First thing we're going to do is start the stacking belt. So now we're going to look for our stacking belt, make sure it's moving. Now that we see it's moving, we're going to start our flat belt. We're going to turn it on, make sure it's running. You see it moving up there. Now that we got everything going, we're going to go start feeding it.
Each 7-ton bucket of salt will keep the washing plant busy for a good 2 minutes, giving Riley just enough time to talk us through the process.
We were up there pushing salt onto the grate, which goes to the crusher, which gets fed onto this belt, and then it comes all the way across the belt into this tank to be washed.
But while giving the grand tour, Riley's failed to notice an issue in the works.
Tank's overflowing, so we're going to take care of that.
There are a lot of things that can go wrong in a typical day of salt production, mainly because it's such an unforgiving material to work with, especially when it comes to the machinery that's meant to move it. That's why United counts on guys like maintenance manager Vince Goki to keep all that equipment running as it should. And today, that means making a critical repair to one of the company's 9 loaders.
We'll be resealing the lift cylinder on our 972 loader. Install new seals on the cylinder that's leaking. We'll get it back up, get it back to production so they can keep running out here.
Leaky cylinders are just one of the many salt-induced issues that Vince deals with on a daily basis. And with more product to move than usual today, fixing this loader is priority 1.
Get it set up, get the bucket on the support rack, start getting everything ready to pull the cylinder out. There you go. Down a little on the front. The reason we're changing this out is the packing here is leaking. We'll put new seals in it and get it up so it quits leaking.
For starters, Vince and his team will have to remove the 8 bolts holding the piston in place. But in an environment where salt conspires to seize everything and rust, just doing that can be a challenge.
There. Yeah, go ahead and try it. Ready? It broke.
While Vince and his team work on the stubborn bolts. 10 miles up the road at United Salt's main processing plant, operator Kelly Smith is firing up yet another system, one designed to dry, sort, and store the freshly cleaned salt.
So now we can turn on the dryer.
A propane dryer like this one can process about 60 tons of salt per hour before sending it off for sifting and storage. But first, it'll need to be fired up.
So now that the fire's going, we can walk through and check, make sure everything's running good.
Though larger in scale, this dryer works a lot like your typical household appliance, with a rotating cylinder tossing the salt to ensure it's evenly heated.
So after the salt comes through the dryer, it'll fall through the screen and into the hot screw. So the hot screw will take the salt and it'll take it up to the production elevator, and then so it's all jumping out the side instead of going up to the bin.
Certified from headlamp to tailpipe. That's certified head turns.
It's all backed by our unlimited mileage warranty.
That means unlimited peace of mind. Mercedes-Benz certified pre-owned. Translation: the Mercedes of your dreams is closer than you think.
Critical Wall Street moves. Large numbers of people.
You could probably survive. As commodities go, salt might be one of the more important ones we've covered so far. Because if push came to shove, you could probably survive without lumber, oil. And though you certainly wouldn't like it, even waste management. But live without salt? Not a chance. That's because each of us physically requires about 200 milligrams of it daily, just to stay alive. Collectively, that's 72 tons just to keep Americans upright every single day. But salt can keep us alive in more ways than one. Because every winter, we rely on mountains of it to keep our roads ice-free and our motorists out of harm's way. And with an unseasonably bitter cold front sweeping the north, it's on companies like United Salt in Carlsbad, New Mexico, to ensure the most urgent demand for this year is met. But at the main processing plant, Operator Kelly Smith is dealing with a downpour of salt that should be found to the public.
So you can see these two shakers are clogged up, so there's too much salt going to this one. You can see all the salt falling out of the side.
Kelly knows all too well that issues like these can only mean one thing. There's a clog somewhere in the works.
There's no salt falling through these ones. So we can pull these doors out of each of the Hummers. And now we have salt coming through.
As for the 500 pounds of salt that found its way to the plant floor, Kelly will have to put it back into the system, one shovel at a time.
If you don't clean it up, then, you know, the same thing happens with somebody else. It's just going to make a bigger mess, and then eventually you'll just have a mountain of salt sitting down here. Alright, now that we cleaned up that mess, we can come back through here and check everything, make sure everything's still running alright. And, you know, making sure it's not falling outside. And then the burner just went off.
Out here, a stiff breeze is all it takes to blow out the dryer's main heat source. So after shutting the whole system down, Kelly will have to light it back up.
Now that I got it reset, now we can come back over here and restart the flame so it starts drying the salt again. Well, now that we got the fire running, we can start all the belts now and get the salt drying again. Now everything's good. We can get back up and running.
Kelly's operation may be back up and running. But down at the shop, one of United's front loaders is still out of service. All it needs is a simple seal replacement. But after years of salt corrosion, maintenance manager Vince Goki and his men are struggling to remove a single bolt.
Yeah.
But with more than 4 decades of experience, Vince knows that the right leverage can move almost anything.
Go from the other side, do a little lifting. Ready? There you go.
With the bolts out, Vince and his team can finally pull the broken piston and take it back to the shop for repair.
There it is. There.
But to replace the faulty seal, they'll have to remove one more nut.
Found the same pattern in the middle of the other video.